Hey, welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 198. 198. And we should be recording now, right? We are recording. Okay. Um, so uh, so tonight's class is entitled, at least my part is entitled the Overcoming Darkness or Finding the Light in the Darkness, which is going to be a continuation because it still is Purim. It's Shushan Purim. So somewhere in the world, it's still Purim. Not necessarily legally here in the United States, but maybe if we just put a wall around it, it would be okay. No, I don't know. And then your title is going to be
Okay, and my title is What Anti-Semites Get, What They Understand About the Jews That the Jews Do Not Understand Themselves. Also about Purim.
Purim. Okay. I think there's more material to talk about Purim. I thought there's more material to talk about Purim. So here's what it is. So the Megillah is called Megillah's Esther. And it's interesting. Why should it be called Megillah's Esther? Didn't Mordecai have some part in it too? I mean, they were really a duo together, working together to do this whole thing. So it could be called Megillah of Mordecai and Esther, Esther and Mordecai. But it seems to be only called Esther. And that's a good question. Why is it all the credit is given to Esther in the story? So I think this is going to be very interesting for Jewish women because really Esther is going to turn out to be. We're going to find out much more about Esther and about the amazing thing that she did in the Megillah story. And Megillah means revealed, and Esther means concealed. As the rabbis say, they say it in Gemara Tanis, where is the hint to Esther in the Torah? Because everything that is in Chumash everything in later in Tanakh has to be somehow mentioned also in Chumash itself, in the 5 books of Moses. So they say, the Abishur says, Anochi chashter Aster at Panai, I will conceal my face. Aster, I will double conceal my face. What does it mean, double conceal? Why does it say twice concealment? And this is the hint to Esther, because sometimes there are things that are hidden, but you know that they're hidden, you know that they're somewhere. And then there's sometimes where you don't even know that they are hidden anymore. And that's a deeper level of concealment when you even don't even know. And that's certainly the whole Megillah story, because in the Esther, it doesn't even look like it looks like a story. It doesn't look like a book of the Tanakh. It doesn't look like a miracle. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like palace intrigue. But actually, it all is very much the hand of God in the entire story. And so that's the double concealment of the story of Esther. There's a story that goes with that story. Why not? The Maggid of Mezrich, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, had a son, and his son was once playing hide and seek, as it's not such a new game; it's been around for a while. And he came home and he was crying, and his father said, "Why are you crying?" And he says, "Because I went to hide and nobody found me." And his father says, the Maggid says to him, "I thought that was the whole point of the story." He says, "Yeah, but they stopped even looking for me." And he was crying, and the Maggid cried too, because he says, "Yeah, that's the whole story. Is God can sometimes conceals himself, and he conceals himself so well that we don't see him, and it really is crime because we think he's not even looking for us. We're supposed to be. His concealment is supposed to inspire us to try and get closer to him." So this is the story of the Megillah. What happened in the Megillah? The story. Why do we say that? Because Esther is very much the story is a concealment. How do we say that? I mean, this was a time where there was a king who, of course, he was bribed to kill off every single man, woman,
No,
and child.
bribed. He didn't take the money.
Okay, he didn't take the money, but didn't have to be bribed. But he didn't. Doesn't matter whether he was bribed or not.
Himself.
He was. He.
What?
Can I say this?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, the money didn't hurt. He didn't take it, but that doesn't mean anything. He wouldn't have done it. He didn't come up with the idea himself. Haman helped him, and Haman was Haman, and we still have Hamans in this world. A lot of Hamans. And there you go. And Esther certainly didn't volunteer for the job that she had to do. She was a nice Beis Yaakov girl staying at home, doing she didn't have an easy life. Her parents died at a young age. Mordechai took her in. It wasn't an easy life at all. And now she's finally, she becomes Mordechai's wife or niece or whatever it was. The story was, and then, against her will, she's taken to the palace. And she certainly didn't want to go to that palace and so forth. And she didn't want to have to become the queen and all that becoming the queen that entails. She didn't want to have to be with that man who was basically a crazy, murderous, megalomaniac. I mean, he killed his first wife. This means that he had a record for killing wives. You think that Esther wanted to be married to this guy? I mean, she even knew when Mordechai said, you have to go in to talk to the king. She says, I know what kind of a king this guy is. He may love me, but that will stop him at all from killing me because he killed his first wife too. And he can do that on a drop of a hat. So, it's obviously was a very, just trying to emphasize what a distasteful situation it was for Esther to be there in this situation. Mordechai, on the other hand, it was a difficult situation, but he was at least above the situation. He was always true to Judaism, true to his cause. He didn't have to go into the lion's den and actually deal with this Achashverosh. And then comes the whole story. And then it says that Mordechai says you have to go in. And she doesn't want to go in for good reasons. I mean, because it's very iffy. Whether she will save herself or anybody else. And most likely he will kill because that's what he did before. So she doesn't want to go. And Mordechai basically twists her arm and says, if you don't go, the Jews will be saved somehow, but I don't know what's going to happen to you. And then you can hear in Esther's voice, we even changed the voice in the Megillah. She says, I will go, but ask everybody to fast for me. And im avadati, avadati. And it's interesting. The Balkori, when he reads that line, if I perish, I perish. That's one of the we normally the Megillah said in a very happy tune, but at that point in time we use the tune of Eicha, of Lamentations that we say on Tisha B'av. Im avadati, avadati. So it's you can sort of get a sense of the drama and also of the pain that Esther is facing, and especially then when she goes into the into the palace against her will, and she has to go through the courtyard, which is called the Beis HaSalamim, the place where there are a lot of idols. And at that point in time, she was a prophetess, and she felt the Shekhinah depart from her. And she says, and we say it in Tehillim, she says, Lama Hashem avadati. Why? What, no, not avadati. What is it? What? Azavti, right? Lama Hashem azavti. Why Hashem have you abandoned me? And she felt abandoned. She really felt abandoned because here she was against her will, forced, and she's saying to God, basically, he says, I didn't go in, I'm not doing this against it. I'm being compelled to do this whole thing and so forth. And why do I feel so alone? And I think that is the theme of the story that we want to pull apart. That she felt alone. She felt not only was she having to do these things, but she felt that she was losing her her life in this world and in the world to come. She was losing everything, and yet she still went in. And what did she find out? She found out, interesting enough, that God did not abandon her. It was very dark. It was a hostel. It was a concealment. It was a double concealment. And nevertheless, she found out that, she had an amazing, amazing godly ability. They say even, that this was a certain way that it says with Moses, he couldn't pray in a place where there were idols, and she was able to pray there, and she actually brought the Shekhinah in with her. And when she confronted Achashverosh with Haman, she became this power woman, and she was actually able to overturn everything because of the godly force that was with her. So this is actually the message we have many times in our lives where we feel that we're all alone. and we feel that God has somehow abandoned us. And we feel that we're, and we feel that somehow we're not on the right spiritual track even. And somehow in this darkness and in this double concealment and triple concealment, which we're facing right now, where everything seems very far, you have to know that there's no place without God. And that was the story of Esther. And that is one reason why Esther said to write this story. Because if you read in the Gemara, it says as follows. The story that says that, Esther went, it says in the Gemara, when Megillah Esther, the background behind the writing of the story of Megillah Esther. Says that Mordechai and Esther went to the Sanhedrin and they said, you know what, we want to establish this holiday as a holiday for generations. And the Sanhedrin didn't want to do that. And Esther said, Kavuni Ladoros, establish me for generations. And Rashi there in the Gemara explains that she didn't ask only that we should have a holiday like we had Purim yesterday for generations, and this should be a permanent holiday, but she wanted it actually to be written as a book of the Tanakh, and she wanted it to be read as the Megillah every year. 3 things she wanted: a holiday, that have it written in Tanakh, and actually that we should have a whole reading of the Megillah. And the rabbis didn't want to do this. They said, you're going to increase anti-Semitism against the Jews. And she says, they know it already. I want the Jews to know about it, though. So let's write it down anyway. And they agreed with her. And the Gemara there says that this was specifically Esther asking this. And why was it Esther asking this? Because that was the story, is Esther went into this battle more than anybody else. She was really the mover in the story. She was the one that risked herself. Mordechai, as I said before, was sort of aloof to the situation. He was behind it. He was giving advice, but he didn't actually go into the lion's den. He didn't actually go and have relations with that man. She actually didn't give birth to a child from him. She went in and she gave it all. She gave her all. And it was in a very, very difficult situation. And yet, you know what? God is with you there too. God is with you even when it's a very difficult situation. And that is why we call this Megillah Esther. It's the revealing. Megillah means to reveal. The Esther revealed godliness even in the situation of concealment of Esther, of Haster. And that is also the reason why God's name is not mentioned in the Megillah. Because if we said God in there, we would be saying there's a visible God. There isn't a visible God. She actually brought a revelation of God higher than his name mentioned in the Megillah, and that is why we call it the Megillah's Esther, and we don't even mention God's name, because in Megillah's Esther there actually is a light and a revelation of godliness, which is greater than what can be brought out in a name. It's something that you can identify, and that is also why the Rabbi Tzadok Cohen of Lublin, he says the following, which is very interesting about this whole story. And he says that, in a certain way, where was it go? That Esther, that Esther really, Esther really is. I forgot what he said. All right. I think I just said it, that really that it reveals that there's a godliness in the story, but even though that's why God's name couldn't even be mentioned. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting idea about behind the Megillah. There was one other idea that I wanted to bring out, which was as follows. There's a question that people ask, which is, why is this whole story of Vashti at the beginning? You could have said it as follows. You could have just said there was a king, he had a queen, she rebelled, they killed her, and then and Esther was brought in. You didn't have to go into the whole party and how the king told her that she had to come with her crown and nothing else, not wearing anything else. And it was they were all drunken and they were all bragging about their women. And the king said, mine is more prettier than anybody else. And then there's this whole messages back and forth. Vashti doesn't want to come. The king wants her to come. Finally, Vashti wants to come, but then she has skin disease and she doesn't want to come. And she could have just sent the message and saying, you know what? If I come, it's going to look really bad, for you and for me, because I got the skin disease. But she never did that. And even more so, like I said, why do we have to tell you this whole big story about Vashti and about what she did? So the Kabbalah, the Chassidus, explains as follows, that the word Achashverosh means God. Whenever it means Achashverosh, we're really talking about God in the story. A melech.
When it says melech.
Melech Achashverosh. A melech, what?
Just a melech.
Just a melech?
When it says a melech.
Okay.
Okay.
I can correct it whenever it says a melech. But anyway, that's referring to God. So Achashverosh is a metaphor for God. But then what is Vashti? We say Vashti is actually klipa. Klipa means concealment. What is concealment? Concealment means really, there's really nothing other than God. Vashti is, klipa is that power that tries to explain that there's something else that you have to deal with. There's another force in the world, and it's more real, and sometimes its demands are more important than what God wants. So that's what Vashti is. And the way that all these lies and half-truths and false narratives exist is because shadows. Something to create a shadow, there has to be something blocking the light. So what Klipa does is it basically blocks the light, that there is godliness everywhere, and it tries to say that there is something here that, different than what, and you don't see the light that actually gives life to everything. That is what Klipa is. When the king tells Klipa, you got to come to the palace and you got to take off your clothes and you got to reveal who you are, is basically telling the lies of this world, you know what? Come unmask. Don't put on any of your airs. I want you to see you exactly who you are. And when that happens, it just disappears. It goes off the scene. It dies. And that is the same thing as what we have in the world today. We have a lot of voices out there who are forces of Klipa. Why do I say they're forces of Klipa? Because they try and take truth and distort it and hide what the truth really is. They try and say, you know what, Israel, you got to make a ceasefire. What's their ceasefire? Ceasefire is really, in truth, if you reveal the concealment in the cloak, what it's basically saying is, Israel, you have to give Hamas a second chance. It's true. It's bad that you're actually winning. They are going to come back and they're going to kill a little more of you and more of you and more of you. And you have to give them a chance to rearm and try their efforts again. That's what a ceasefire is. Let's call spade a spade. That's what it really is. You know what? That kind of lie has to depart from the scene. And the same thing with this humanitarian aid. You don't give humanitarian aid to your enemies, because as you see, the humanitarian aid that you give is really all going to Hamas anyway. They take it away. So what are you doing? And besides, as far as they said, the more food is going in there now than ever went in before the war. So this is all a big lie. It's all a big checker. It's all falseness. It's all klipa. And when God says, you know what, klipa, you have to come and you have to take off your clothes and you have to reveal who you are. You are not interested in humanitarian aid. If you really were a humanitarian, you would take these people out of there and you would give them homes in Saudi Arabia and Iran and Turkey or wherever. You really don't care. You want them there and you want them to suffer. And therefore, that's why you won't let them leave that area. Let them go to Egypt. You don't care about them. You really don't care. What you care is you hate Jews. So let's make this all clear, what all these lies are about. And that is what Vashti is. That's what God says. God says, you know what? I'm going to make a party, and I want Vashti to come without her clothes, without her concealments, without her hiding. Show the truth of who you actually are. And what happens to Vashti? She disappears from the scene. So the two things that I said tonight really are both related to each other. There is a concealment, there is a haster, there is a concealment. But you know what? Esther reveals. Esther Megillah, she reveals the godliness in this world in places where it seems dark, where it seems that there's no light, where there seems that there's no godliness going on. And then it shows that, you know what, a Jew can be happy and can rejoice that we can turn over this world, even when it seems that you're doing something completely opposite the world. And this is what the Tzaddik Cohen says, very interesting. When Esther said, rightly for the generations, she was doing an amazing thing. She really was. Because normally when a person is violated, they don't want anybody to know about it. They want to keep it a secret. They don't want it. They feel embarrassed, even though they're not guilty. They didn't do anything. And Esther says, I want my story to be written for generations. I want everybody to know about who I am and what I did and the sacrifice I did. She was a very brave lady. She was a very proud lady. She really knew who she was. And she did something, that normally, people have a tremendous amount of difficulty doing. And you know what? She wasn't guilty. And so now everybody knows they can just read the Megillah. They can see what the story was. You know what? Esther was the actual prophetess, the queen, and the one who the entire story and who saved the entire Jewish people. And the reason why we have Jews here today is all we have to give a thanks to Esther, because if it wasn't for Esther, we wouldn't be Jews, we wouldn't be alive, we would have all been wiped out by Achashverosh.
Thank you so much. Okay. Hi, everybody. Does anybody have any questions before I begin? My part is going to be very short, but I think it's very worthwhile. A point that I really appreciated when I learned it. Okay, so I'm going to begin with the 4 things that I always begin with. Number one.
I have a question after you finish your 4 things.
Okay.
Or I can say it now. It's not such a, I don't expect you to really have an answer, but we're very, very careful with Svarim and stuff because it has Hashem's name in it. So we're supposed to do this or do that. But if Megillah Esther doesn't have Hashem's name,
We're very careful with it. Very careful with it.
Right. So why is it? Is it just because it's Torah or whatever? That's all. I'm just throwing it out there as a question. I thought about it.
No, it's Torah just as much as if it had Hashem's name. It's one of the 24 books of Tanakh. It is.
Yeah, yeah, but for some reason, but in my mind, like it seems like when something has Hashem's name, then it's really, really like you have to be especially careful with it. Like even whatever. I don't want to.
Okay, it's true. We don't write Hashem's name without any purpose. But if you take some lines of Tehillim that don't have Hashem's name, they're utterly holy. They are they're an expression of godliness. So
can I make a comment about it?
Okay,
so
good.
There's 2 things. One of them is you're not allowed to erase Hashem's name.
That's right.
So I think what you're referring to is when people have something that does have Hashem's name, they're not even allowed to throw it away. They have to put it in special shemus or geniza or whatever it's called. But it doesn't mean the rest of the Torah is not holy, even the words that don't have Hashem's name in it. Just when there is Hashem's name, we're forbidden from, even when they check a mezuzah, they have to be so
I know
careful.
that, but technically.
But also, you can't throw out any lines of Torah. You can't throw out if there's a pasuk of Tehillim and it doesn't have Hashem's name. It's shemus, just like if it had Hashem's name, it's shemus. You can't throw away a line of Tehillim if it's written.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just was throwing out there, but I'm running around working, so I'm like only halfway. I just thought about it. That's all. I didn't think about the rest of it.
The entire Torah is Hashem. It's like Hashem is in every word, every nakuda, everything. It's like it is Hashem in written form. So we're very careful with all of it. That's a good question. Thank you. So I'm going to say
that's a good question.
I'm going to say the 4 things. The 4 things are that number 1, we're in an extraordinary time, which we all know, and I say it not on my own authority, but on the authority of the Lubavitch Rebbe, who told us that we are in the unfolding of the redemption that the entire world has been waiting for millennia, and the Rebbe said many things nobody else ever said, but the Rebbe has always been right in every single prediction he made, in every single statement he made in public that I ever heard. Including shocking ones. Rebbe was 100% on the money. Even people who criticized him, like there was a famous Hasidic Rebbe who didn't like the Rebbe's, he didn't like the Lubavitch Rebbe's position on Israel, which meant that the Rebbe didn't approve of the fact that it's run by a secular government, but the Rebbe helped the government. He gave them, he talked to the army about how best they can conduct their wars. He gave military advice. So other sects of Judaism thought that was wrong because they don't acknowledge the state of Israel. But even those people who were verbally critical of the Lubavitch Rebbe because of his position on Israel, the biggest Rebbes in the world, not Lubavitch, acknowledged, and they said to their own people, if there's something that's too difficult for me, like a blessing that I can't manage, I send it to the Lubavitch Rebbe. The address to go to if your situation is too tough for anybody to deal with is 770 Eastern Parkway. So the Rebbe's anyway. So let me just go on. The second thing is that you and I, our souls were handpicked to be in this era because we have a critical role to play, each one of us. If anybody's ever worried about their lack of importance, you don't have to worry about your lack of importance, because by the fact that you're in this generation, you are important. And Hashem planted you here for a specific purpose and to uncover godliness. And third, we have the tools that we need to.
Oh,
to do this.
poopers.
Oh, sorry. Mind if I mute you?
Oh,
Okay.
nutsos.
Okay. So anyway, we have all the tools we need to navigate this time. We have the Torah and the mitzvahs. The Torah is our guidebook, and the mitzvahs are our power tools. And finally, what we're doing tonight actively advances the redemption. The Rebbe told us that the fastest way to speed up the redemption is by learning about it. And so I want to just talk a little bit about Purim. I want to make one point and tell one story. And the point I want to make is that it's a point from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Rebbe makes a great point. Why, when Haman was upset about Mordechai, he was upset that Mordechai wouldn't bow. Why did he decide to kill the entire Jewish people? A fascinating point is that there were many Jews who were too afraid of Haman and did bow down to him. So why would Haman want to eliminate not only this irritating person, Mordechai, but his entire people? There were many, many Jews who bowed down to Haman. Many, 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 if not, who knows, maybe it was a majority. Mordechai was unique. So why would he want to, if he's so furious that this guy's not kowtowing to his ego, why does he get mad at the rest of the Jews? What does it have to do with them? And the Rebbe points out, well, I should take down a Megillah, but the Rebbe points out that when Haman was told what people Mordechai belonged to, that's when he decided to get rid of everybody. Why? And it's because Haman, like many, 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 many anti-Semitic giants, Haman understood that, yes, it's true, only Mordechai is not bowing down to me, but inside, they're all the same. They have this attachment to this Hashem, this figure that keeps them from even if they bow down to me externally, they're not bowing down to me internally. And he knew that if I hate Mordechai, I really should hate all of them because they're all the same. They are all attached to this figure that they have, this Hashem, and they're attached with a bond that cannot be broken. And so there's a rabbi Chabad rabbi that I listened to. His name is Rabbi Zalman Tachtel, and he made a great point. And he said, just as an anti-Semite has it clear, he has it totally clear that you don't have to be a Mordechai. You can be somebody who's bowing down to Haman. You can be a relatively unknown figure, but really you're a Mordechai at heart. Every Jew is the same. They have this love of God, coursing through their veins, even if they don't acknowledge it, and even if they are unaware of it. That's the true essence of a Jew. As we all know, it's a freak phenomenon of the Jewish people that you can take, that if a Jew who has no connection overtly to his Judaism and denies his Judaism and denies his belief in God, if somebody holds a gun to his head and says, deny God or I'll blow your brains, they allow themselves to have their brains blown out, because when a Jew is put to the test, the spark of Judaism rises to the surface that he didn't even know he had. Now, it's true, other nations have they're able to sacrifice their lives for their God, whatever it is. But that is the religious fanatics in those people. The difference is that a Jew, even not a religious fanatic, even somebody who denies his Judaism, cannot deny God when pinch comes to shove. It's the ordinary, there's no ordinary Jew, but it's the most ordinary Jew, when put to the test, will give up his life rather than deny godliness. So, anyway, this Rabbi Tachtel made a magnificent point, and here's what it is. He said, just as Haman hated every single Jew, no matter what their philosophy, no matter who they are, no matter what their outward expression, we have to love every single Jew, no matter what they say and no matter what their outward expression, and no matter how many qualities that they have that you find irritating and annoying and whatever else. You have to love every Jew with the same unreasonable love that Haman just like Haman hated every Jew with an irrational hatred. We have to have that same irrational love for every Jew, because Haman was right. When push comes to shove, every Jew is the same. So, this Rabbi, I think it's a great point. I really do. I wish I had heard this Devar Torah, and the story that went along with it. I wish I had heard it before Purim, because it would have helped me. So, it could help you every day. It's a magnificent concept. So, he told a story, a Boston story, and a story with a Boston angle. And the story starts in the early 1980s, and it starts with a rabbi in he's in California. I believe he was in LA. His name was Schwartzy. His name was I don't have my notes with me, so I don't remember his first name, but he got the nickname Schwartzy. Everybody called him Schwartzy. And I think it was Shimon Schwartz. He's not alive anymore. His name was Shimon Schwartz. There's a book written about him. And he was a Chabad rabbi back in the early 80s. And when it was not easy to get people to do a mitzvah, and he was on a campus somewhere in California, and it was Purim, and he was trying to get people to listen to the Megillah. He had a Megillah with him. If anybody wanted to listen to it, he would roll it out, but nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to listen. He was there for hours. Hey, Mr. Jew, you're Jewish, aren't you? Would you like to listen to the Megillah? Not one person wanted to listen to the Megillah. So then there was this Jewish professor who saw this poor guy, and took pity on him. And he said, okay, I'll listen to this thing. And so Rabbi Schwartzy was extraordinarily excited. He takes his Megillah out of its container and he starts unrolling it. And the guy looks, he says, whoa, wait a minute, what is this thing? How long is it going to take? And, Chabad rabbis specialize in saying the Megillah as fast as possible, because there are people who will not give a long time to you to listen to the Megillah. And so this Rabbi Shimon Schwartz was apparently an expert, because some some Chabadniks have it down to 15 to 17 minutes. And he said, so he told him the truth. He said, at my best, I can do it in 15 to 17 minutes. That's my record. And the guy said, no, Rabbi, have a nice holiday. This is not for me. I thought it would be like a 1 or 2 minute thing. And he said, I've got to go home. I have a wife, I have kids, I have to go. It's, I'm finished with work. I have to get back to, I have to get back to my house. And so Rabbi Schwartz says, where do you live? He says, I'm in Irving. It's a long commute. I have to go. And Rabbi Schwartz says, Irving? I've got to go to Irving, California. I also have to be there. I have to go there. He said, can I have a ride with you? And the guy said, yeah, I guess so. You can sit in my car, no problem. So Rabbi Schwartz gets into the car. They get to the car. Rabbi Schwartz gets into the car. They drive to Irving, and after they've left town, when they're on their way, shortly after they're on the way, Rabbi Schwartz says, "Listen, we're both in the car together. We have a long drive ahead of us. Would you mind if I just read you the Megillah, because you're not doing anything else?" And the guy said, "Sure, why not? We got a ride ahead of us." So Rabbi Schwartz reads the Megillah to him. They get to Irving, Irvine. I don't know what it is. somebody help me with that, but Irvine, I think. And they get there, and the guy said, "Where can I let you off? Where do you need to go? Where's your home? Where can I take you?" And Rabbi Schwartz looks at him and says, "Can you take me to the bus station?" And all of a sudden it dawns on this guy. This guy didn't have to go to Irvine. He, the only reason he got in my car, he spent an hour commuting to this city so he could read me the Megillah. Oh my gosh. He was shocked. He took him to the bus station, and he said it's a busy day for him. It's a Jewish holiday. He has a family at home. He has probably a million things to do. And he took an hour one way, an hour backwards, just to let me, an ordinary Jew, listen to the Megillah. So anyway, it's an amazing thing that the Rebbe taught all his Hasidim that it's the Jew that is spectacular. There's a spectacular thing in every Jew, and you have to respect that spectacular thing in every Jew. So anyway, and do whatever you can for him. So that's not the end of the story. So now there's his son, Rabbi Schwartz died. Rabbi Shimon Schwartz passed away. He was nifter in 2017. His son is a Chabad rabbi in Brookline, which is a suburb of, which is a small community, a very nice, affluent community inside Boston, inside the confines of Boston. And so, and he has a very successful Chabad house, and I think his site is something like Get High, CHAI, and he has a lot of young professionals who come to him. Anyway, one time he's a Chabad rabbi, so one time he was in. His name is Moshe Schwartz. They call him Mesh Schwartz. So one time Rabbi Mesh Schwartz was in Crown Heights, and he went into one of the yeshivas there, and somebody looked at him and said, "You look a lot like this Rabbi Shimon Schwartz from California. Are you any relation?" And May Schwartz said, "Yeah, that's my father." And so the guy said, "I have a story for you. You have to listen to the story." And so Mish said, "Okay, fine. It's a story about your father." So the guy said, when the young guy in yeshiva said, when I was in college in California, and somebody invited me for a Shabbos meal. And after the Shabbos meal, I took, as another time I went and I heard a Torah class, and then I heard more Torah classes. And I got to the point where I knew that this is something I need to explore. This is something incredible, something, wisdom I never heard before. And so he decided that he wanted to leave college and go study in a yeshiva in Israel. And he told his parents, secular Jews, and he said, I want to quit college right now or take a leave of absence and go learn Torah in Israel. For the parents, this was an absolute disaster, and it was a crazy idea. They were so into their kid getting a college degree and a great career. This was a horrible deviation from their plans. And they argued back and forth and they couldn't get anywhere. Neither side would give up. And so the father said, "Listen, we need an intermediary. We need somebody to intercede for us. We need somebody." And so they decided to call the father's father. The father's father was very well, the father respected him, and the son and the grandson respected him very, very much. So they called the grandparents. The grandparents came, and both sides laid out their story. And when they were done speaking, the grandfather looked at the grandson and he said, "Tell me, if you go to Israel, what yeshiva would you like to learn in?" And the grandson said, "Well, actually, I had in mind to learn at a Chabad yeshiva." And the grandfather said, "If you want to go to a Chabad yeshiva, that's very good. I give you my blessing." And the son almost hit the roof. His father is totally a secular Jew, totally no connection to Torah. What is going on here? And so the father explained. He said, many years, the father was a professor in college. And the father said, many years ago, there was a Chabad rabbi who went 2 hours out of his way on a holy, important day to read the Megillah, a Torah scroll, to me, who has no connection to any Torah learning whatsoever. And why would he do this? Because he saw something in me. He saw that even though I'm a totally secular Jew, there's a part of me that is as important as Moses. And it was incredibly important to him to read the Megillah to me because he felt I'm incredibly important. Any system that teaches that to their students that's a place I'd like my grandchild to learn in. That's a place I would love my grandchild to go to. So anyway, that's the Rebbe's viewpoint. And that's what Haman understood. Haman understood that there's this part of a Jew that is the same in every single Jew. And that's why he has to wipe them all out, even if they're bowing down to him. And the Lubavitch Rebbe understood that there's a part in every Jew that is the same in every Jew. And it is totally, 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 totally invaluable, of an infinite value. So anyway, that's the lesson I think that we should take from Purim. And when we have Jews that irritate us, and we have Jews that you can't deal with them, we have to love them irrationally. We have to love that spark that we don't always see, that spark that's just like Moses in each one of us. And that's our answer to anti-Semitism. We learn from anti-Semitism. We learn, just like anti-Semites know every Jew is the same, we have to learn that lesson. And that's the story for tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn off the recording. And if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear it.